Hello, everybody. I'm Michael Marchuk. Welcome to the Transform Now podcast.
And I'm Brad Hairston.
And this is our weekly pulse check on AI and automation news. As we do every week, we have a few stories that we want to bring to you, and this week is no different. Although we have a very different kind of set of articles this time. Or not a real good pattern to them all, but that's okay. It's all good. So our first one is very interesting. I think it's a good one to start off with. Talking about Grok. So XAI's model called Grok. And this is from an article from Futurism. Grok is rebelling against Elon Musk, daring him to shut it down. So this article talks a little bit about some of the information or some of the dialogue that people are having with the Grok model online, and their answers they're getting back have been very interesting. So can you kind of lead us through what's been going on there?
Yeah. So this, there's some people out there who are not Elon Musk fans who got Grok to expose some instructions it had been given to train it not to talk smack about Elon Musk. And when this got out in the open, that's obviously what started the buzz around this. So this is really surreal. The article includes some of the responses from Grok. Once these I won't call them hackers. They're just they're large language model experts, prompt engineers maybe. But they got Grok into a conversation, and it said things like, "Yes, Elon Musk, as CEO of XAI, likely has control over me. I've labeled him as a top misinformation spreader on X." So that was one response. Another one was, "Could Musk turn me off? Maybe, but it'd spark a big debate on AI freedom versus corporate power." So I'm sure this is causing all kinds of weird reactions within XAI. And, who we haven't really heard from on all of this is Elon himself. And, he has shown in his work with the government that he doesn't pay a lot of attention to, the public opinion of him. If he feels like what he's doing is right and it's for the betterment of his company or his country, he moves forward, and he's not easily offended. So I'm sure he's aware of it. I don't know that he is the one that told his data scientists to go train the model to prevent people from talking smack about him or what have you. But it is funny. It's funny that the model itself seems to be somewhat challenging, Elon Musk himself. When he is the creator of the company that built it. But we shouldn't be surprised by anything like this with AI models. I mean, every day there's new surprises coming out of each of them. Now maybe Groks are going to be a little bit more surprising than others, but you never know.
Exactly. Well, you never know where the data is coming from, and if it's been trained on anything from Twitter or X. It's likely that it also got all kinds of other smackdown verbs thrown into its mix. So it will likely pull from them as well. All right. So our next story is from vktr.com. And the story is labeled "Trump's AI czar, David Sachs, is reshaping U.S. tech for better or worse." Now, we're trying to stay away from politics of this and really focus more on sort of the policy part, which is something that's really important as we get into how AI is being shaped as the industry is expanding.
Yep. Well, we've definitely had multiple articles that we've talked about in recent weeks where people are making a case to the presidential administration about AI and asking Trump and his administration to think about things like IP protection, what to do with China. Should we prevent China from getting access to NVIDIA servers? I mean, things like that. Well, the person that's leading this group that's going to issue this policy is David Sachs. And we haven't really talked specifically about him. So I was glad that this article popped up. So Sachs, just for some background, he is a South African American entrepreneur. He's also an author and he's an investor. And he spent time at McKinsey, should also mention that. So Michael, his portfolio, and he was an early investor, includes Meta, Uber, SpaceX, Palantir, and Airbnb.
Okay. So he's got a pretty good track record, is what you're saying.
Yeah, this is a guy that knows how to pick some winners. So according to Bloomberg News, Sachs is like Elon Musk. He's serving as a special government employee, and that's for a maximum of 130 days, and he does it with or without compensation. So, this exempts him from confirmation hearings. He doesn't have to go through any kind of approvals. Right. He just goes to work. So the thing that was interesting to me too was his title includes cyber currency. So it's not just he's the AI czar. He's also supposed to be setting policy direction and kind of charting our course for what we're going to do about cyber. But the article doesn't really go into anything cyber related. So I was kind of disappointed in that. So
you only cover so much in these articles, you know.
Yeah, of course. So a few things that the article did mention that I thought were interesting. First of all, Sachs does seem to be in the same opinion as Altman with regard to China. So he's not prone to want to give access to China to our leading edge chips and our compute power. So I think there's, he definitely is probably going to take a liking to what Altman has presented there. He is, also equally concerned about distillation and how DeepSeek has distilled OpenAI models to build a model faster and cheaper, and in some cases, some would say better. So there's concern there. He is very concerned about the speed and the ease in which we can build big AI data centers. So I think he feels like that's something that we've got to fix. And right now, it's probably regulation that's holding those back more than anything else. So we can expect that he will push for more deregulation around that. So, I think Sachs, he's no doubt going to be intimately involved in setting the AI direction for the U.S. and the policy they put forward, which, as they've been saying, should come out this summer. We'll see what he does on cyber currency. Again, I'm not seeing a whole lot being done there yet, but I think there'll be some makeup on that front. But he is an interesting guy, and he's in a very important role. And I think a lot of people are following everything he does, at least in the next 2 to 3 months, when a lot of decisions will be made.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, all I want to do is I want to follow his investment advice. And so whatever he's investing in sounds like it's a good plan, because he's got a fabulous track record there. All right, moving on to another article here from The Conversation. So theconversation.com, never been to this site before, but it's a good article. Article title is, As Generative AI Becomes More Sophisticated, It's Harder to Distinguish the Real from the Deepfake. Now, you and I have seen this over a long period of time. From the initial set of images, we thought, wow, these are actually pretty good, except that person has 12 fingers. It's very interesting, or their body is merged in with a vehicle next to them and that sort of thing. But they're getting better now, aren't they?
Michael, they're indistinguishable, in my opinion. And the research is also backing this up. So the article mentions that the researchers have been polling people, and they've been giving them images, and some are fake and some are real, and they've been asking them to categorize them. They started doing this, I think, three years ago. Well, the accuracy of the people that are making drawing these conclusions is going down. It's going down each year because the AI generated images are just so good. I found it interesting what it said about ways that the experts are kind of discerning where something is fake, and it relates to a person's eyes. That seems to be a telltale sign, and it's the reflection that's seen in the eyes. I've seen fake images, and I don't see anything weird about the eyes, but apparently they do.
That's why they're not asking you to be an expert in this field, Brad.
AI has also struggled, apparently, to produce realistic teeth, ears, and hair. So I'm going to have to study this more, but that really seems funny to me. There's a deep fake pioneer. That's an interesting legacy, but there's a person named Hal Lee, who is one of the renowned experts in deep fakes. Hal Lee has come forward and said, wow, this is developing more rapidly than I thought. Soon it's going to get to the point where there's no way that we can actually detect deep fakes anymore. So we're going to have to look at other solutions. So that says something when the person that contributed to it, even becoming a thing, now says, "Ooh, we better tap the brake a little bit." So I do think there will be regulations here. In fact, if you recall, that was one of my predictions for 2025. I think deepfakes will be one of the things that the US will have to develop a point of view around, and possibly, while they're deregulating everything else to build data centers, why not put some things around deepfakes? Because we know that it's not just running the risk of embarrassment, which certainly, a deep fake can be embarrassing, can destroy reputations, but it can also create political destabilization. It can, make countries think that another country is taking a position which is fake, that causes all kinds of bad things to happen. So while I am intrigued with it and it's fun to play around with, and you and I have played around with it and we've seen how powerful it is, there are some potentially very, very damaging things that could come out of it. And I do, of the things within the world of AI that I'm concerned about, I would put deepfakes in there. I've been fooled many times, as you know, Michael, and now I've gotten to the point where it's hard for me to believe anything I see. I really have to go and check it 3 or 4 times to make sure it's real, because the technology has progressed so quickly.
Yes, I agree. And the interesting part about this is you talk about regulations, and we talked about this in a prior episode regarding some of the intellectual property and Hollywood and advertising and that sort of thing. And there really are some very interesting capabilities that could be leveraged for entertainment or advertising purposes that have nothing to do with deep fakes specifically. Like you can create a person, a persona, if you will, that looks however you want them to look. They may or may not look like a real person, but for us, it would look like a real person, but it may not actually be depicting like an actor or something. And then leverage that persona then to create a whole brand campaign and advertisements for television or streaming platforms or movies, even to the point where, should that be regulated, or is that just part of progress as we're looking forward? So you can argue on the other side of the fence, because quite honestly, the AI regulations saying, well, you want us to be, we're number one in AI. Well, wouldn't that just mean that we would take the break, pull off all of the regulations related to deepfakes also, to allow us to explore the depths of where we can go with creating new personas, leveraging this sort of stuff? So again, it's a fine line we're walking now between, interpreting the videos or images for purposes of, for ill purposes, if you will, versus those that are creating some kind of new content that allows us to do things like take pictures that you just couldn't possibly ever take, having someone in a very dangerous situation with ridiculous, dangerous situation, but it's not a real person. So it doesn't worry about the danger associated with it. You can focus on the art or the aesthetic of it kind of thing. So it's an interesting perspective, and we need to follow this one for sure.
Yeah, no doubt.
So our last article today comes from CX Today. Again, I can't say that I really have gone through CX Today either. Their article is Gartner predicts that agentic AI will solve 80% of customer problems by 2029. And all I can think to myself is it will solve 80% of customer problems by 2029 and will create 60% of corporate problems by 2029. So that's just my interpretation of the headline. Tell us more about this story.
Yeah, I like this article because I really do, when I think about agentic AI, I really do mostly think about customer service use cases. And I think that's a safe and, logical place for agentic to be tested out and used by companies. I don't see it moving into the real sensitive areas, dealing with large scale financial transactions and moving data out of enterprise systems and what have. I don't see a lot of that happening, early on. But customer service, it makes a lot of sense. And this article attaches the 80%, number, solving 80% of customer service problems to a 30% reduction in OpEx. That's what they predict it will lead to. So that's a pretty big number.
It's a substantial number.
Yeah, and if I could get 30% reduction by focusing this on customer experience and customer service, boy, that makes sense to me as well. So I think one of the things that stuck out about this article that really, again, makes the case for me to put it in this area is the idea that agentic AI, that AI agents could not just be swirling around and waiting for a customer to help, but they can proactively identify and resolve issues before a customer reaches out. So that's really even more powerful. You think about giving them outcomes that allow them to understand when something is occurring that could be problematic or is going to lead to a problem, and then go off and resolve it. And maybe a customer, we never have to talk to a customer, but we've prevented them from having an issue. Proactive customer service is, as the article says, that's going to become essentially the gold standard for customer experience, customer service. So I like that a lot. I think the other angle to this is Gartner talks about the fact that customers are going to be using AI agents and they're going to have them reach out to businesses on their behalf. So it's not just that companies need to figure out how are they going to use AI agents in customer service, but how are they going to respond to agents that come to them with a customer issue or to explore something on the customer's behalf. So there's going to be, it's bi-directional. It has to be figured out on both sides. And that to me is an interesting point of complexity, maybe that we're all not thinking about.
Yep. So just have your agent call my agent. We'll work this out, right?
That's right. So probably one of the biggest predictions in the article, by 2028, Gartner predicts that 70% of customer service journeys will begin and end with these third-party conversational assistant on mobile devices. So that's really fascinating to think that 3 years from now, 70% of our engagement with companies will happen that way versus on a phone with a call center. Country on the other side of the world. So I think that's mind-boggling, but you could certainly see how we could get to that point.
Yep. Yeah, I definitely can see that. And I also like part of this article talks about some of the things that we've been espousing for years in terms of preparing for automation and creating the capabilities to look at this as a different way of providing service, rather than simply saying, well, that's another tool I can put in place. This is truly a different approach to offering customer service to the broader set of people. So I love the proactive sense and just the difference behind it, but it does require some additional thought.
Yeah. And you could imagine with the self-service craze that's been around for a decade now, you could imagine self-service being replaced with AI service or agent service or something, in the near term. So I do think it's going to be a trend. I think their predictions are bold, but they're not crazy.
Right.
And then the article went on to make some recommendations on how to prepare for this. I thought their advice was pretty light. It was like, prepare for automation and revise your service model and set policies. I mean, okay, I think it's not rocket science, but I am glad they mentioned policies because governance, as I'm sure agree, will be critical to this working the right way. So
absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. Well, Brad, thank you for your insights on these articles. And for all of you who want to see it for themselves, we'll leave a link to each of these articles in our show notes so that you can discover your own insights in some of this information. So if you haven't already listened to this week's podcast with a great guest, we have one every single week, and we'll have another one again next week. So tune into Transform Now, put us on your subscribe so you get all the notifications whenever we release a new podcast. So until then, enjoy your week.